Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, and we are here with you as usual with our GenAI news briefing. I'm here with three of our analysts and Ankaj, our star analyst who pulls all the articles that we talk about. Today, we have a good show as usual. We've got 6 pieces for you. We're going to take a look at what SAP has announced about their AI capabilities at their Sapphire conference. We'll look at an AI assistant coming from Asana, talk about some research that McKinsey did, and much more. So without further ado, let's have Ankaj get us started.
Thanks, David. So the first one that we have for today come from Asana, and they have introduced a new AI teammate that can now tell people what to do at work.
All right, we all want to be told what to do by something maybe better in AI than your manager. Paul, what do you think?
This is deep optional. I mean, this is one of 10,000 vendors who are adding this. We continue to see very little pickup in my experience. I mean, even our own company, we're paying extra for Gemini, and I don't think anyone's using it. I was at a conference yesterday with 400 people, and I talked with at least 10 people who bought Copilot and for their employees and seeing very little pickup. And, so I think it's optional. I think it's still, the jury's still out. This whole notion that, we'll add AI and all of our work will be done is naive. And this should not even come close to the AI leader's desk.
This one had a bit of a creep factor to it. As I read it, I kind of cringed thinking about, so this one's got a little bit more going on rather than as opposed to just, kind of co-piloting what you're doing, right? It's looking at past projects and who worked on those projects and the success of those projects. And based on that, determining who should be the team on a specific project. So it's got a big brothery feel to it that gave me a little bit of pause. I don't know if anybody else had that reaction. I know that, companies are monitoring what employees do, whether they realize it or not. But I guess when you see it kind of in writing and think about the decision-making on project assignments coming from AI rather than, a person, it's like, wow, this is the ship that we thought was coming, and it doesn't feel that great.
That's an interesting take, David. I hadn't actually considered that aspect of it. And that was the one thing that I thought debatably might make this important, which is that they do have the knowledge capital about what projects have already been done and what resources have worked on them because they're already embedded into this tool. It's something at our company we struggle with in my day job is resourcing the correct people and figuring out who has the skills we need to get a job done. So in some ways I can see where that would be really powerful. But when you start talking about evaluating how they did on the projects and whether or not you would recommend them for future work, then it definitely gets a little bit big brothery. But I thought overall this was definitely optional as well, as Paul well articulated.
I mean, one thing, go ahead, Tim.
Well, the creep factor here is it's there. And, but we gave up our privacy so long ago. I mean, I worked on social network analysis 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago now. And it completely freaked people out that just by looking at email patterns and rates of response, we could figure out who were the connectors in the organization, who had knowledge about which particular facts. People hated it, absolutely hated it, even though it was clearly valuable, but it was just creepy, right? Go ahead.
No, I think I think they could do this. A much more tactical and valuable thing was to have AI have variability on open task follow-up. Hey, Paul likes text messages. Let's put a joke in this. Hey, Adam, down in Australia, can you bump this along? So I think there's an opportunity, but monitoring skill set's not it.
Especially all right. Skill sets, by the way. There was a prototype that I think Doug Lanack did for SAP, where they read everybody's resume within SAP, and then they went out and looked at all their Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, everything they could find on them, and they got a very good solution, Adam, to your problem. Like they could find who they needed that really had practical experience with some arcane tool.
All right, I'm almost inclined to elevate this important just to highlight that creep factor and have that be a consideration for companies. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to elevate into important just for that reason. Gavel
Not
down.
my book, but okay.
The news is
I
optional.
wouldn't spend their time on this article. I'd put that in the comments, but I'd leave it optional.
All right, fine. We'll go optional, people, but I definitely will point that out. All right, what do we have next?
Okay, the next one comes from SAP. So SAP Sapphire is going on right now, and as with all other enterprise software vendors, GenAI innovations are taking the center stage.
Okay, so I could pretty much take what Paul said about the previous article and slap it onto this one, and that would be my reason to call it optional. I read this entire article. I went to their website. I tried to look up reviews. I still have no idea exactly how Joule helps you. It really didn't go into any detail on exactly what it does. This tool has been around since last September, by the way, so that's another reason to mark this optional. If anybody out there is using Joule and SAP, ping me, and I'd love to hear about what it does and what you think about it. Reading this article is not going to enlighten you on that, and I go super optional.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think there is we've been saying forever, and I'll pay another homage to Gordon Bell. Gordon, I think the AI is going to be embedded and disappear within all these platforms, but this article doesn't tell you much. And Gordon said, literally, I want to say in the 80s, maybe the early 90s, computers will disappear, just be bumps in the cables. That was a very prescient moment. And I think but anyway, this article is still quite optional.
Yeah, we're going to just move right on from it. It actually annoyed me. It's GenAI washing, right? That's what this.
Yeah, very much.
That's what this article is. Okay, let's go right on to the next one, Ankash.
The next one is about Torrens University and how they have used generative AI, saving 20,000 hours and 2.4 million in time and resources.
Okay, Adam, in your homeland.
Aussie. Yeah. I rated this as important. At first, I thought it might be optional because it's a singular use case, but I thought this article did a fairly good job of describing the process they use, and there was value, I think, that could be applied even outside of education to the process itself. So basically what they did is they used generative AI to streamline and standardize their course content. If you scroll down on the page a little bit, there's sort of like two pictures and then it says 60,000 times. And they did an extensive survey. They took a long time to first even evaluate what it is they were trying to accomplish. They looked for consistency. They improved the mobile experience and the accessibility, and they kept the humans in the loop along the way, both the students in terms of the feedback, but also experts to review and refine the output. So I thought it was actually a pretty good use case. And this process of how you can optimize and standardize data doesn't just apply to education, right? It could be healthcare, retail, finance, manufacturing, just about any place where you have data and disparate data that you're looking to refine and standardize. This is actually a pretty good playbook of how you could go about doing that.
Yeah, and they mention another way they're using it that I'm hearing about a lot, which is to improve accessibility of web pages. So you can put in alt text, right, to make sure that anybody that has low vision or is blind can have that read to them so that they know what an image says, what a chart is showing. And this is great for doing that really quickly, right? You just upload your photo, it describes it. It's actually a function that's becoming kind of automatic in LinkedIn and some other areas where you post images. So that's a nice use case as well.
Yeah, it is. I can see what you're saying, and I did like the use case. It's this. I mean, this is a Microsoft marketing, article, right? to a great extent. So I have a little bit of a skeptical eye on it.
That's why I started as optional as well, to be
Yeah,
fair. Yeah.
but I do believe, I agree with you that it was what, at least they gave some good detail on what exactly they did. It was kind of interesting.
And I appreciated that emphasis on the keeping the humans in the loop, in line with our opinions as a team about designing for dialogue and
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a bit like you did on the Asana article on this one. However, we've got some mild agreement from Tim that we can elevate to important, so we'll put this one as important. Let's move on. Ankaj, please.
Yes. So the next one comes from Wix. So Wix has introduced a new tool which can use AI to generate smartphone apps. A few months back, Wix also introduced a tool where you could have created websites just by telling Wix to create the websites.
Okay, I assigned this one to myself. I'm going to start off with saying I'm going to put an important rating on that, and I'll tell you why. So, as Ankaj just explained, Wix, who we know is a kind of a no-code website creation tool, has now moved into application development with no code. So the reason why I think that this is important is because, as we'll read actually in one of our other articles from McKinsey, the notion of no code has been very slow, right? It's a lot of the tools that claim that that's the case. They have a really high learning curve anyway, and I feel like we're still kind of in early days. And as the McKinsey article says, they even feel it's going to be a couple more years before we really see no code in high gear. But here we have the ability to create an app from scratch without laying down in a single line of code. So to me, I think this is just highlighting the beginning of that movement in earnest. And that would be my argument for making it important. I will open the floor to agree or disagree. Tim, what do you think?
I respectfully disagree. It's a product announcement. It's interesting. I will say, the fact that they're doing it for mobile development is interesting because that's often more challenging for a lot of people. But there's no evidence that it works even yet. It's just an announcement. So we don't generally promote announcements that heavily. And if it works and there's some really good use cases, it'd be really interesting. But I can't see taking a product announcement and making it an important item.
But when will we know, right? If not now, I mean, are they going to come out in
after some people have built some good applications and they get some traction and they get some press on their own?
Right, but is that going to be reported in the news? Probably not, right? We'll have to go out there and do a survey and ask people to find out. So that's what I found. Sometimes we don't want to just promote product announcements, but you don't ever come back around to them, right? Unless they get like significant use cases, and we find
But David, I think you're being too polite. That's the role of a good product marketing PR person, is understand what gets press, and we want to reward good behavior. And shame on the Wix person for not coming back and following this up 6 months with 20 examples.
Right, but as a marketing person and someone familiar with PR, most likely, and publication's not going to pick up at your report that people are using your product, right? They're going to pick up the report of a product announcement. So we'll see if this comes back around.
I asked the robot because I'm not in this space, but it very quickly gave me a list of 8 products already in market that do this. So it's good that Wix is doing it, and I know they have a high profile, but for people that are looking for no-code development for iOS and Android, there's plenty of options already out there.
And
Right.
Adam, we had Surat gave a fabulous demo of one of our learning labs on Galileo AI, and that's a no-code mobile website that's in production, that's build an app right in real time. So
yeah, well, we've got this comment by Ashish, which signals what we were just talking about, that we're still kind of early days, but this is going to accelerate.
Yeah,
I
think the English interface to coding is a huge issue. I've written about this many times. I think it's a huge issue overall, because the reason in my mind no code, quote unquote, low code, no code has never really taken off is because what people don't understand is there's an enormous amount of contextual assumption that you understand computers and programming and how things basically work, even to use a no code, a low code, no code environment. And that's why people get frustrated very quickly, because most people don't have that knowledge. Programmers have that knowledge and architects have that knowledge, and they use them just fine. Everybody else instantly struggles. And the difference is when you can say in English, I don't understand why this isn't working, please explain it to me or fix it. That is a huge difference. You can't say that to a low code platform. If it's broken, you just have to figure out why it's broken and not doing what you want. And now you're effectively having to think about the computer and how the computer works. And that is the big disconnect. I never thought they're helpful, but they're not helpful in the sense of getting Paul and John and David to be programmers. These tools could be and will be, I think, over time. And that's
right.
an enormous.
And that's when you just you get the $5 a month service package, and you reach out to them to help you to do it. I also would argue Wix, Wix is in this space of enabling the common user to be able to create something based on computer code, right? A lot of the other products that are out there are coming from.
They're in the low code space. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm not trying to pick on you, but
No, I know.
Wix. I have friends who use Wix. They call me up because Wix doesn't work, and they say, "Tim, how do I get this Wix to work?"
Yeah, I mean, totally. I use Wix. I use Wix for my website, and it definitely has some bugs in it. I'm not going to lie. I just think that they have a better chance of getting traction than some others because this is their native, play here, right? Yep. A lot of others are software providers that have typically targeted and created products for a developer, and it's a much harder thing to now go into the non-developer market and develop share. But look, I always go with the majority unless I have a super strong conviction. We'll go optional. I've said my piece. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, the next one comes from Mistral. So they have launched new services and an SDK for customers to fine-tune its models.
All right, Tim, thoughts?
So, mostly, again, I see this as optional. I could maybe be arm twisted into important because it's Mistral. It's like, Microsoft of Europe kind of thing. So it's an important company, but this is a series of product announcements. They're interesting. They could be quite powerful. And Mistral has already done some amazing things in open source and with smaller models, both of which are really important. But it's a product announcement. Again, it's just a series of new capabilities. And so, yeah, pretty interesting, but let's see what the uptake really is.
All right. Optional vote. Anybody have any thoughts or disagreement? I'm going to take that silence as a no. Optional it is. Light reading day so far. We've got one more piece.
Okay, the last one comes from McKinsey. So this article talks about how product leaders or software leaders can navigate the GenAI disruption in software.
All right, Paul, what do you think of this from my former employer? And actually, I know two of the authors.
I think it's a well-written article. I think it's a trend everyone sees. I rated it optional.
I'm not being a what is it called? A homie? Homer. But I'd argue that this is important. Yes, that there's some information in here that we already know, but I think there's some really nice benchmarking material. You could look at the spend. They've got a bunch of good charts in here that I feel like are worth perusing at the least. Maybe don't have to read the whole article. You could throw it in ChatGPT and ask for the highlights. But I felt like it was worth a read. do I have any support on this one?
You mean like lower pocket important? Lower
I
back
think,
pocket?
upper, lower, middle pocket. Yeah, I think you can argue it either way. It is a well-written article. The interesting thing would be, to me, is to read this one, put it away, and then see where we are a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Because their projections they're mostly projections. They're not facts, okay? They're mostly their assertions about the uptake and other things. And they've got a lot of smart people, and they spin a good yarn. So it's a very well-written article on that. It spins a coherent story about what's going to happen. It'd be interesting to see if they ever revisit this based on what actually happens. So yeah, I thought it was worth the read at that level. It's not clear what you take away from it for action.
Yeah, and I liked that they were realistic about it, right? I mean, there was no hype in here. There were, intimations that things are going to take a couple years to develop here. So I also felt like it was a little grounding, which is unusual for a consulting firm, right? It comes to mind, that I think it was it BCG or Bain where we reviewed this article where they were like, enhance your terrific retail, returns on GenAI. And it's like, I roll my eyes at that one. This one, I felt like, wow, thanks McKinsey for actually not, feeding the hype machine.
Well, yes and no, because if you look at the chart that's on the screen, the title is, will be greater and faster than SaaS, okay? Based on 12 months worth of data.
Well, it's based on the actual money going in. That's their argument is just more money has been spent.
Mostly investment money. I have been a startup. We were awesomely successful at selling to VCs, far less successful at selling to customers. So early sales numbers to VCs don't count. Really penetration into enterprises and retail is what counts. And it just takes time for that. You can't tell in 12 months how that's going to really pan out.
Any other thoughts? All right.
I will go with important on this one, David. Go.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me one win today. Chalk it up. All right. We'll go with important on this one. I can ask Ankaj where we ended up, but I think I know already. 2 importance. We've got the important on this one. We've got important on the Australia case study.
I will read Michael's comment there. He said it's optional. It emphasizes what he already learned from GAI Insights.
Hey, I can actually, I've figured out finally, I can pick and choose. I can moderate the comments. So thank you for pointing that one out. I mean, it's definitely one that we want to show up on the screen. I'm going to keep it there just for the rest of the show. All right. So we've got 2 importance for you. Man, I fought for one of them. That's the one that we just read. I lost the argument on several others. We've got the Torrens University one, which, hey, I would have marked that one as optional, but that's why we're here.
Yeah,
This is why we're here, and what makes it fun, right? We debate all these and come out somewhere. Usually I'm a Democratic moderator, and it's always a good educational experience. Anybody have any announcements about any talks they're giving or anything that they want to share?
I've got 4 announcements. So I'll be at MIT this afternoon. I'm in Chicago this afternoon at a talk. There's also Link Ventures is having 60 AI startups meet at 2 o'clock today in their offices in Kendall Square. Tomorrow, June 7th, John Warner's doing yet another large AI conference at CSAIL, which is the largest computer group at MIT. It's going to be really focused on technical research, and 27 of the top researchers are doing presentations. Also for the Boston area at 9 o'clock, we have AI Blueprint for Massachusetts. This is our volunteer effort to support the governor's AI task force. And on Monday, I will be at a conference in person with Ashish and others in Burlington, Massachusetts, talking to a group. So lots of activities.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for the lively debate as usual. Thank you, Michael, Ashish, and others who are watching. If you haven't already, sign up on our YouTube channel. You can get recordings of these videos if you ever miss us, plus all weekly learning labs and other webinars that we do. And of course, you can go into the link where you entered here and sign up for the email summary that we send out post this show. Have a good day, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.